This is American Tier 9 premium battleship, Georgia. She will be released into the game today, Friday the 14th of June, for both for real cash from the premium shop and also for 228,000 coal from the armory. Historically, Georgia never existed. She was part of a planned fast battleship project, but was superseded by Iowa class, which was actually built. And this had double turrets instead of Iowa's triple turrets. And so the triple turrets turned out to be a better idea, and so they were implemented, and the double turret fast battleships were not. Georgia started out life in test as a distant sniper, a bit like the Slava concept that's currently in test, but was quickly changed into a secondary spec. So her key characteristics now are that she has Massachusetts secondaries, and she's also the fastest battleship in the game. Let's look at some of her vital statistics. She has 74,100 hit points base, a maximum base speed of 33 knots with a 15% speed boost, and with a Sierra mic this means she can do just under 40 knots. Her maneuverability is fairly average, but because she has fast forward speed, she's able to react to things fairly quickly, although the rudder shift is mediocre. Her armor scheme is typical American armor scheme. She's mostly covered in 32mm of armor, which makes her vulnerable to cruisers with IFHE, certainly, and she's also very vulnerable to be citadeled from the side. Her main guns are 457mm super heavy AP rounds, and she only has double turrets, but what she lacks in the number of shells she makes up for in reload time. The low number of shells is also compensated for by slightly higher accuracy than the other American battleships, and she also has a very good fire chance at around 40%. If her main party trick is her speed, her second party trick is definitely her secondaries. She has the same secondaries as the Massachusetts and can be spec'd in exactly the same way, and the replay segments that I'm going to show you will be spec'd for full ham secondaries, including IFHE. Of course, spec like that, your survivability goes way down, as does your concealment, so you can also more conservatively spec the Georgia for concealment, range and tankiness if you want to. Lastly, Georgia carries a decent AA suite, which of course is further buffed by a secondary spec build, and she can easily defend herself, definitely against tier 8 carriers, and she can do a decent amount to tier 10 carrier planes as well. Before I show you some gameplay, I thought I'd show you around the port setup that I have here. The DCP can actually be taken up to 28 seconds with the special upgrade module, but here I'm actually spec'd for secondary survivability. The heal is pretty good. It has the option of fighter or spotter, but I recommend taking the fighter. And it also has that special engine boost, which is unique for an American battleship. These are the upgrade modules that I am taking during the replays that I'm going to show you, I think. So yes, as I said, you can spec the special DCP module if you want to, but where I can, I've spec'd for either secondaries or for damage control. I've also spec'd for reload on the main battery guns, because we're going to be doing quite a lot of brawling in a secondary spec battleship. Here are the captain skills which I've chosen. You'll notice that I've chosen BFT instead of Superintendent. This is the full ham secondary build. The half ham secondary build involves taking Superintendent instead of BFT. But I figure I'm not going to get to use that last heal anyway, so what's the point in having it? And don't forget, you can also spec IFHE, even though the UI tells you it's not a good idea. It is a good idea. In case you don't have time to watch the gameplay that follows, my potted summary of this ship is that it's great fun. Its survivability is somewhat questionable because of what you're going to be doing with it, but this isn't a battleship that you take to be a super unicum battleship player and kill everything. This is a battleship you take to have 10 minutes of fun and die, but you're going to have a smile on your face at the end of it, and to be honest, you're not really going to care whether you win or lose because it's just funny, and it's the same kind of thing as the Massachusetts. There is one thing you need to be prepared for, and that is because it has a low number of shells, it is sometimes frustrating to hit things just simply because the dispersion, sometimes the randomness will just not be in your favour. So as long as you're prepared for that, then I do recommend this ship if you like ships like Massachusetts and, for example, Großer Kurfürst and Friedrich. It is a unique ship though, the combination of secondaries, good AA, American armour, but with that speed makes it a unique ship which you can't really compare to anything else, but I do recommend it. Okay, we're going to look at a bit of gameplay now. I'm not going to show you a full replay. I'm just going to show you a few snippets here and there. This is a tier 10 game. It's a carrier game, so we're definitely going to get to use our AA. I don't last the whole match, as often is going to happen in the Georgia, because you're going to be pushing very aggressively if you have secondary spec. You don't have to spec this ship as secondary spec. You could spec it for the main guns, you could spec it for survivability, and you could stay back a little bit and then just use the non-manual secondaries in sort of late game or in an emergency if something pushes you. That would definitely work as a build, but that's a bit boring, to be honest, and it's not what this ship was meant to do. This is a pretty good map for this. It's definitely a pretty good spawn for this. We're going to push forwards and see what's happening, and I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit here until we join the action. Okay, so one thing you need to bear in mind with Georgia, a bit like the high-tier Russian battleships, is that you do want to push, but you want to push really carefully because you're very vulnerable from the side, and spec for secondaries, you're also very vulnerable to fires because you haven't got any of the enhanced DCP cooldown or anything like that, so you are going to take a lot of fire damage, which is one of the reasons why after I recorded this I actually started to run the enhanced DCP upgrade, which gives you a 28-second DCP time, which is really good for pushing into HE spamming cruisers and things like that, because it basically makes you immune to fire and flood for 28 seconds. The other thing to remember about this ship is that at that kind of range, although the dispersion is pretty good, I think it's just over 200 meters at max range of 20. Don't expect to land that many shells, because although I get one on target there and I do get a citadel, that's pretty lucky with the dispersion. So you just have to kind of take the RNG as it comes. Sometimes it rolls your way like that, and then other times it doesn't, and you just have to not get angry with it. Just keep shooting. You've got a good reload, so just keep on keeping on as you move in. Be a bit cautious. You notice I'm slowing down here. Just waiting to see what the enemy's going to do. Are they going to push, in which case I'll just stay here and receive them, or are some of them going to go back towards B, or what's going to happen, because I don't want to push in to a whole load of HE spam. I can definitely bow tank, but I prefer them to come to me if possible. And also the other thing to remember with the Massachusetts style secondaries is actually they can lob islands pretty nicely, so you should see the secondaries starting to fire over this headland certainly before the Kreml actually comes around the headland fully. So you have to bear that in mind as well. And there's a few destroyers around, so I just need to keep an eye on those on the minimap. But I'm just going to be biding my time here and waiting to see what happens. But these battleships are presenting me with lovely broadsides, and at that kind of range that Kreml is at, I should be able to get some decent damage, although RNG wasn't as kind to me then as it was shooting the first battleship. See if I get any luckier with this. He's starting to angle, so maybe not. He, being a Kreml, can do some serious damage to me, even though I'm nose in. Same caliber as me, of course, 4.57s. So I can't stay there for too long. He's aiming at my superstructure and my guns, which is going to hurt. The other thing that's just happened is an Henri has started to pay attention to me. Now that's very dangerous because I'm covered in 32mm armor, and I don't have any kind of fire protection on my captain or my upgrades, really. So his guns can definitely do me some damage, especially with, you can see him there using his reload boost, which fortunately now is over. The carrier is also starting to come in, but fortunately my AA is fairly good. I do have a fighter, which for some reason I don't know. There, I do pop it. Good. So hopefully those midway torpedo bombers will take some damage from the fighters, although of course being a tier 9 battleship, he does definitely get the first attack through. That's kind of inevitable. So I'm backing off. I'm using my speed boost to try and get back around this corner, because I've realised that I am kind of running out of friends a little bit here. So I can see there's some things pushing into B, so my plan here, I think, is basically see if I can back up enough that I can carry on shooting the stuff over there with my main guns, which are pretty good at range, but try and get some secondaries onto the stuff in B. Now, I know there's a couple of destroyers down here, so I need to be a little bit cautious, but there is a Colbert, which is a current test ship, a very fast rate of fire cruiser, which is very good if it gets into that kind of position at dealing with destroyers at close range. So he is no doubt going to be shooting at that that destroyer in the channel there. I think there's 2 of them in there. And so I'm just doing a bit of a 3-point turn, try and turn around. And the speed boost, of course, does help you with that because you can, although the rudder shift isn't brilliant and the turning circle isn't brilliant, the speed does get you there quicker, that's for sure. Carrier just on the edge of my AA, you can hear that going off there. Now, these guys over on the 10 line are going to be pushing up, which is a perfect opportunity for me to shoot at their broadsides. But again, because I've got a low number of shells, I mustn't expect to be deleting cruisers and citadelling battleships and that kind of thing, but it happens occasionally. So it's just one of those things where just shoot, and if it happens, it's nice. If it doesn't happen, don't get frustrated. That's just normal. Just aim as best you can. We'll see what happens to this Henri here. That looks like a pretty good grouping. I honestly can't remember what this shot was like. We'll see. Nope, that was not enough lead. I didn't notice that he was speed boosting. So yeah, we'll just keep hammering away at him. And meanwhile, I am pushing in to try and get my secondaries onto something in Bravo. See if these are any better. You can see me giving a little bit more lead there. That grouping also looks pretty good. It's quite strange to only see 6 shells going across there. That was better. 2 overpens, 1 pen. And then a citadel with the rear turrets. So that's working quite nicely now. And hopefully we'll discourage him a little bit. Or annoy him, one of the 2. The dive bombers... the torpedo bomber's coming for me again. So I pop my fighter again. And there's also a gearing, I think, helping me out a little bit with his AA. And this Henri is slowed right down now, so I'm just going to give another pop at him. And then you can also see my secondaries there. I have focused them on the Des Moines that's just coming across the bottom of B. So you can see them firing. They are extremely accurate secondaries. And because of the IFHE, I am going to be doing lots of penetration damage to him with that. And also possibly some fires. I should really be popping my heal now, stats, but I seem to have forgotten. I think I'm focused on trying to take this Henri out. Oh, someone else gets there first, so now I'm free to see if I can push forward a little bit and see if I can get some secondary damage. I think we might skip ahead slightly here until we make the next contact. Okay, so this is just a few seconds later. I've pushed into the B cap, and there's a Musashi who is starting to make his way into the channel. That's bad news for me because, of course, he can pen me from every which way. With his 460s. The carrier is also taking an intense interest in me. I think he's realised that although my AA is okay, it is getting a bit beat up by this point in the match, and he can drop me quite easily. Musashi having a nice go at my broadside there. And there's also destroyer torps coming as well, but I get my secondaries onto the Musashi. Getting a nice lot of hits there. Against a target that size, you're going to hit most of those shells. Trying to get in cover behind this island here. You can see I've got double fire there. That's not surprising without fire prevention. And of course my DCP cooldown isn't brilliant either. So expect to be on fire an awful lot when you're doing this. Still, I have 1.4 million potential. I'm up to 93,000 damage. I'm probably not going to last much longer. But I've kind of done my job because I have stopped them from pushing too far up into the cap and flanking us, and I'm also sort of discouraging them really with the secondary fire from pushing down that channel. Because not only is the secondary fire quite effective, it's also psychologically quite effective. People don't like pushing into that heavy secondary fire, even if it's not actually doing that much damage to them if they're, say, a battleship. Midway is determined, that's looked like Tiny Tims to me, is determined to do me in. I think he will, but I'm going to see if I can get one last bit of damage before we go down. There's a Bismarck over there somewhere. I'm hoping that the destroyer hasn't come out of the channel and gone south, and it isn't waiting for me around the corner. One of them's just popped up behind me, but I don't get to get my secondaries on him in time before I go around the island, unfortunately. There's Mr. Bismarck and his friend, which is a Salem. So I think I'm pretty much done for, but I'm just going to try and discourage them and give our Bismarck time to push up. Kremlin I wasn't expecting. He gets my broadside and whack. You definitely don't want to broadside another battleship in this. The same as any of the American battleships, you definitely don't want to be broadsiding anything. So yeah, pushing around that island was inadvisable, but the carrier was going to kill me anyway, so I thought I might as well try and get a main battery hit off. This match actually turned out to be extremely close. Let me just zoom towards the end and you can see how close it was. So for those of you that need closure in these kind of situations, this was the end of the match. The clock's running down, 15 seconds left. It was pretty much even Stevens were slightly ahead on points. They were up on caps. Had the match run longer, I think they would have won, but we definitely held them off long enough to keep that point advantage from capping B. And I finished with nearly 107,000. We'll just take a look at the place. It wasn't a particularly brilliant match by any means. But I think that match is fairly typical of what you could expect when playing the Georgia and trying to get in there and use your secondaries and your AA and then also shoot stuff with your main guns at the same time. So that's the results. Placed in the middle of the team. Shout out to the Zhao, 2,500 base. Very, very good. So what are my final thoughts on Georgia then, and do I recommend it? Yes, I do recommend it, especially if you are an avid Battleship player or a collector. If you're just looking for a normal American battleship that can shoot stuff from long range, then I would just stick to the tech tree ships. They will do you perfectly well. If you're looking for something a bit different, especially if you own a Massachusetts or you played a Massachusetts and you like that kind of play style, but maybe it's a different flavour of that play style, then I would definitely go for this. It's a good late game brawler. You can do a little bit of sniping or mid-range sniping at the beginning, and you can certainly do some secondary brawling at the same time that you're shooting stuff over in the distance, like I did a little bit in that replay. So yeah, I do recommend it. It's 228,000 coal if you've got that saved up. Don't forget to use your voucher as well, and you can also buy it in the premium shop for real cash if you want to as well, and it should be available in the premium shop for your region today.